I'm going to go 5, then 4, then
3, then 2, then 1.
Oh, boy. The wheels, my friends, may stay on until the new year. Welcome to the
Mosby Square
podcast. This is episode number 16, and this should reach you, I think, awful close to the turn of a new decade, really. Well, hang on. So that's not how it works, is it? Because it works, The 2020 is the last year in that decade, and then it goes to 2021. Is that right? I don't know how this works.
How does that work?
I don't know. We'll have to deal with it another day.
There was a lady in the summer, and we kind of leveraged. We give her credit, but we leveraged her mantra as her class, and her whole title was "Leaping into the Next Decade." But if the decade really doesn't start till 2021, then that's not good.
That's what I'm saying.
Radio for one.
Radio for one. Podcasting for one. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to download, if you were so inclined, the show notes, or check out the show notes, the articles we're going to talk about today, you can find those at mosby.ca/016. You can always email us, too, if you guys have things you want to talk about, requests, suggestions, you want to tell us other podcasts that are better than us. You go right ahead, mosbylearning@gmail.com, and we'll pretend to be interested.
That would be a whole Harlequin romance novel.
Yeah, if you want to do that, it might inspire some poetry on my end. My name is Dan Hirt. I'm calling in from Mississauga, Ontario. Let's go to Texas. Who's in Texas today?
Cynthia Gibbs.
Thank you, Cynthia Gibbs. Anybody else?
We've got Eli Berant from northern Oakland County in Michigan.
Yeah, we do. There you go. You're mobile. I like that. You're moving around.
I try.
All right, we are guys. If I had to guess, the Mosby Army listening out there, you got a lot going on. You're traveling. Everybody's probably had about 45 pounds of cookies, and they're 3 drinks in already, because it's just a season. This is a marathon.
The reason for the season.
The reason for the season is to just survive. It's really a season of survival, trying to get through to that next decade or millennia or whatever it happens to be. But this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to touch on a couple things. It's the New Year's episode, so we're going to talk about some stuff relevant to that, challenges for 2020, things that maybe you got to look hard at what's going on and what you're doing to really squeeze every drop of success out of that next year if you're looking for it. There might even be a touch of poetry here, and then we'll talk about what we're going to try to accomplish next year as well. So those are some pieces that you can look forward to in this. I don't think there are any significant social media updates. We'll give away all that information at the end. But you can find Mosby Learning, or at least some part of it, on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. I think that's about it. But and then, like I say, email. You can always email us at mosbylearning@gmail.com. Once again, friends, we do not have. Maybe we're just getting better at this, because we do not have any other corrections from the last episode, which works for me.
It's because Adam's on sabbatical.
Yeah,
that could be it. He's on hiatus. He's on a retreat with monks, and he's trying to align all of his chakras right now. So he's going to come back.
like Peterman from Seinfeld.
There you go.
Do you get bit by a tsetse fly?
Let's go ahead and jump into the first article that we have. 5 learning and development challenges to. Let's go ahead and jump into the first article that we have. 5 learning and development challenges to overcome in 2020. Now this was Eli, I think you actually sourced this one, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you source this? Yeah. Do you want to take us through this, or you want me to kind of start poking at it here a little bit?
You can poke at it. I think you run a steady ship.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's keep it upright then. So, really, what this is, these challenges, I looked at them and I was humming and hawing about a couple of them, but I'm sure we can pull some interesting stuff out of here. The first learning challenge that we talk about here, and this came from Forbes. Now, previously, we've had an article that came from Forbes that was written by somebody that was vested in the success of the VR influence right now.
First thing came through my mind when I saw this article.
Yeah. So we'll find out at the very end, at least, where Cameron Bishop, who wrote this program, and that's okay, because we'll still talk about it. So here's number one: make training a higher priority. Now, in Deloitte had a survey. They do all sorts of surveys. It's like a Harris poll. Yeah. 86% of respondents said the need to improve learning and development in their companies was their biggest challenge. That's interesting. So the survey itself was titled the 2019 Global Human Capital Trends Report. So 86%, which is the vast majority of people saying that they need to improve L&D in their companies. That's their number one priority.
They need
That's
to improve
incredible.
L&D as the people in L&D, or they need to improve the training?
Well, let me read this again. This respondent said the need to improve learning and development in their companies was the biggest challenge. So the actual learning and development. So I assume that's the things that you and I and Eli do.
And if you go back to what we talked about last week, kind of goes back to developing your people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like those folks. I mean, I see it from my perspective as a facilitator and a trainer. I would love for my company and the managers I work with to make training a higher priority, right?
Yeah.
You get more of the resources you need to make the training better. It's a reoccurring theme that comes up on the podcast is, the free option. The free option is a lot of what is done, and free option is not always the best option. Sometimes it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is, but and sometimes it works. Sometimes it gets the job done. It's the duct tape that gets it done. But when you can explore those resources and you can put the time and the money from that, when what a higher priority gets, you get a better product most of the time.
And it's funny, it's you named those three things, right? The time, the money, and the skill set, right? To be able to, you named those three things, right? The time, the money, and the skill set, right? To be able to upgrade training, or, whether it's the people doing the training or it's actually training matter. It's almost like a three-legged stool, though, I think. Because I think you need all three of those.
Yeah, for sure.
I think one of the things that my head was kind of working at with regards to this piece is it's not just improve learning and development. Well, I can't read into the survey. They don't provide the survey, but to me, it's get L&D involved in projects early enough so that they can help. Every project that I've been in, where they say, "Oh, you know what? Let's get training involved. Let's bring that to the table," or maybe we got to beat the door down to get in there. But all of a sudden, once L&D, and I don't know if it's just some magical flipping gift that we have, but once L&D gets in there, we start asking these funny little questions that makes people like sit back in their chairs and go, "Oh,
I didn't think of that."
Yeah, like
it's because I say this. I've said this from the very beginning when I made the jump from into L&D and became a trainer. It's trainers hold this weird, unique position where we're this thin layer that communicates that breaks the glass wall between management and the front lines.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
We have these relationships and we talk to things. We get in meetings and we hear things that the front lines doesn't hear. And vice versa, right? Because we hear things that the managers and the decision makers don't hear in a candid training room, right? Or in a side conversation after a training. So those are where those questions kind of come from. Plus, we're when we're out there delivering that material and delivering those. First training, you do that. The first project you work on, that question comes up. Okay. Second question. You start to see that reoccurring, those patterns, right, of where those questions go from your learners, right, especially when you're zeroed in on a certain type of learner, like in my case, mortgage salespeople. I know what questions they're going to ask because they've asked me those questions.
Yep. Yeah, no, we do. We're almost in it like an ambassador or maybe
it's a unique position that I don't think it's. The word I'm going to use is exploited enough. I don't know if that's the right word,
Well, and I think from that standpoint too, there's a lot of times where we're in the middle and we get to know everyone, and like you said, we get to work with managers, and then we also get to work in frontline employees. But it takes a long time for us to get to the adult table, and you know what I mean?
It really does.
And it takes us a long time to really build where we get to that adult table and they see us as a true partner, and not just as a support, but as a true partner of making them successful.
I wonder where that comes from. I mean,
comes from my HSBC days.
Oh, ding!
She's filling out her own bingo card.
Get your Mosby bingo card ready. Yeah, get your dabbers out, folks. So, I really wonder where that does come from, though. The fact that it seems like it's a repeated thing that comes up where it's like, oh Christ, why didn't we get L&D involved earlier? Well, I suppose we're the ones that saying, why didn't you get us involved earlier?
But how hard are we working at building that relationship? If you work
in a lot of cases,
if you
I'm a
work,
relationship builder, ironically.
I think of one of the classes I train, we talk about the relationship pyramid, right? Where it's kind of like you start off where you're just kind of getting to know each other, etc. But the last two ones is the last three pieces of that pyramid is they respect you, then they trust you, and then they value you.
Can you step back and talk about the relationship pyramid for a second? What do you mean by this? What is this thing?
So I can't remember.
Do you remember? Not heard of it?
Yes, you have, because you trained it with me.
I know, I've
dork.
heard of it. What about a bunch of people out there that listen that might not have heard about it?
I can't remember. What do you remember? What the first two were? Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank.
I don't train it on a regular basis.
Okay,
I haven't worked with you in a year and a half.
I haven't trained it in a year too. So. Yeah,
okay,
you left and it all went to hell,
okay,
right?
Okay, well, then how about I give the rundown then? So the idea behind the relationship pyramid, from what I remember, is it's not unlike the food pyramid, but on the bottom
same
it's like
colors.
People that you're kind of familiar with.
Yeah.
And then it goes up to that. It's like, okay, people you're conversational with, and it keeps going to eventually the very, very peak of it. The smallest portion of it is the people that you have a very deep connection to.
Well, and so the last three pieces is they respect you, they trust you, and they value you. And getting them to value you is the hardest part. But that's what we have to do with our partners to get to that adult table.
So what's the shortcut? Gibbs,
there is no shortcut.
Oh boy, what are we doing here? All right, just a quick reminder. What we're looking at right now is a Forbes article called 5 Learning and Development Challenges to Overcome in 2020.
Just cut me off then.
No, I'm trying to keep the thing moving, for God's sakes. People have parties to get to. So this is parties to get to. So this is... I feel like this list is going to be another one of those lists where we could copy and paste this next year, and it's going to be the exact same goddamn list. Like, exactly the same list.
Nothing's groundbreaking.
Yeah, it really isn't. I saw a guy on Twitter the other day, and it was a comment on, what's the trend in 2020 for L&D? And he made some snippy remark about, let's just copy and paste the one from 2015, which I don't think is probably that inaccurate. I think it's pretty much so. Here's another one: upgrade the skills of current employees. This is number 2 of 5. We're not going to go deep into
story
all of them,
as old as time.
I mean, it really is. And so this one, okay, I'll give this one maybe a bit more credibility because it has to do with the idea that things change so rapidly now. We can't just have our skill set that we've used for the past 10 years. We can't do that for the next 10 because it ain't going to work. Things change quite a bit. Like our skill sets, I think as L&D practitioners, our skill sets have changed considerably in the past 10 years or, upwards of what are you at, 30 years now, Gibbs? How long have you been in the industry?
How old are you, Dan?
1897.
1897.
After this week, it feels like it.
She's been training people how to make 3-legged stools for the past 120 years.
She can't remember what the first 2 legs of the stool are.
But it really is. So they have a nice example of AT&T spending $1 billion reskilling their workforce, which, yeah, sure, it's awesome. But
they have so many employees, and it doesn't work because their company is terrible.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's not
for
the people
service.
they put the $1 million into.
They are pushing Comcast for the worst company. They are pushing Comcast for the worst company in the world.
It's a race to the bottom.
Oh, man.
All right, number 3, apply design thinking to training. Now, cards on the table, ladies and gentlemen, although the term design thinking appeals to me and I have interest in it, I know so little about it, it's unbelievable. Do you guys have any background in design thinking, or have you read a book? Did you see a picture, anything like that?
I've got a book on my desk. I've thumbed through it, but the book that you recommended to me, I made the silly decision last year, or proclamation, that I was going to read it after my son was born.
Okay.
During my time away. That was a foolish statement.
Yeah, you probably have nothing to do during that time of that time of life, eh? All right, so what I took away from this one, the applied design thinking, so I read, actually, the idea here is because of the generations that are in the workforce now, that they're more interested in maybe guiding their own skill set, or the idea of management saying you need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. That doesn't really fly anymore because of the way the world works and technology and blah, blah, blah. But the idea is that learners kind of steer the ship a little bit more when it comes to that piece, unless I've got that wrong. I mean, I might have, but I think it
also goes to presentations, whether they be an e-learning or whether they be a live in-person presentation, can't be slides and bullet points anymore.
Yeah,
it's got to be graphics and pie charts and things that are going from slide to slide or along the same slide, and things changing up, and just not being stale anymore.
Well, and you know what? So Gibbs, you actually mentioned something last week that makes me think of what Eli just said. So you were talking about when you started this, you were using acetate sheets and that sort of things, which are by nature static until you draw on them, which, I mean, that's a level of engagement, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the temperament that we've come from, and now everything is so video heavy.
Well, go ahead, sorry.
No, you've derailed. Go ahead. You're good.
I mean, simple things like, I'm sorry, Gibbs, adding the rounded corner rectangle, right?
Yeah.
Your favorite.
I love the rounded corner rectangle.
Oh, gosh.
Get a room.
Okay.
So get a room with it,
but here's what I think. From training since 1897, I am. But here's what I think. From training since 1897, I am a better trainer, and I've learned how to be more personable and engaging and connecting.
You could try a little harder, but go ahead.
In the classroom, I'm not talking real life, but in the classroom, because I don't have all that stuff. Like, I had to use me.
Yeah, you'd overcome those obstacles.
Well, on my own, because
right. You had to be the rounded corner rectangle
of
your training.
I've often said that about Gibbs.
I mean, and when there's this class that I go to, and I don't even train anything. I sales pitch the sales pitch to other classes I bring to the table. Right? It's this 30-minute session, and I just stand there, and I'm just like, blah, 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 blah.
Sounds a lot like the Mosby Learning Podcast.
Yeah, saying I was the most engaging person.
Yeah.
Out of a 3-day class, I was their favorite.
You aren't afraid to be a person. I find that there's a lot of presenters out there, or trainers, or facilitators, or, of course, you can look at it in any sort of light, but there's a lot of people out there that don't necessarily put themselves into the material, and they just kind of I don't want to say regurgitate, but they just take the content and they say, here's the content. They're afraid to be a person in front of the room. And that's certainly not a problem that you have. So I guess kudos to you. Kudos to you. But you know what? So you just, Eli, a moment ago, you brought up the fact that bullet points on a slide don't cut it anymore. And that goes to kind of the next 2 points in this list. And this is the Overcome in 2020. This is written by Cameron Bishop. Now, Cameron, of course, is, as you guys well know, is the CEO and president of SkillPath, who provides... Yeah, if you've got your L&D flashcards that you're playing with at home, he runs SkillPath, which provides little courses that help people get better at things that they could possibly do. But points 4 and 5 here from this article, which you can find linked to from mosby.ca/016, create on-demand learning content. And then number 5 is supplement traditional learning with video. So both of those really fall down that same sort of path where we got to move things forward. They're talking about having things that are at least mobile friendly. I think in number 4 here, create on-demand learning content, things that the workforce can access. Now, I mean, there's other questions that I have to bring in there, like using your own device. So, okay, am I using my own data plan to watch training videos? Because I'm not excited about that, especially. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me just share a moment of Canadian heritage here. Our data plans in Canada suck terribly. We are just gouged for phone plans up here, not like you guys down there. So, enjoy your cellular privilege.
You need to talk to Trudeau about that.
I should, man. He's got a lengthy list of things to try to make better.
Handsome Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So, well, no, college isn't free here yet. But, all right. So I guess that's kind of the long and short of it there. Oh, you know what? There was one thing that I wanted to read about the supplement traditional learning with video. According to a recent survey by Pearson, 47% of Gen Zers, or I guess Gen Zers if you're in Canada, and 22 of millennials, Gen Zers if you're in Canada, and 22 of millennials spend 3 or more hours a day on YouTube. That's a lot. That's a lot.
That is embarrassing.
So I guess I do consume a lot of stuff, like a lot of podcasts that I'm interested in. A lot of them have a video feed. Oh, actually, we're on YouTube too. So you can find these podcasts on YouTube now on at least my channel, which I should find out what that is. I'll have it for the next episode, and I'll put it in the show notes because I like to be everywhere I can, but the idea is I don't spend that much time, although I can understand how if people are replacing just like A to B, if they're replacing their regular TV or what has been traditionally thought of as regular TV, if they're replacing that with YouTube, 2 hours I don't think is unreasonable, you know? Mm-hmm. Because it's not just as the world turns, so it's also, how do I make a lasagna? It's, how do I use this Excel macro?
So
There's all sorts of stuff.
Let me ask you this. YouTube or video games?
What do you mean?
Like, would you think it's better for someone to be on YouTube for 2 hours or playing video games on their computer for 2 hours?
Well, it depends on what they're doing. And what we're going to hear from the next article that we talk about is maybe you should be doing neither. But, yeah, I think it's anything that you bring that brings you happiness and joy. Live your truth, man. Why? What's your answer? You seem to have a thought.
Because my kid's a teenager.
Yes,
and,
I've heard.
Is
he in band?
Yes. Well, and I was about to bring that up because he used to do both, right? So he's a big gamer, but he's also likes watching YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of the YouTube... Well, and I was about to bring that up because he used to do both, right? So he's a big gamer, but he's also likes watching YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. Now, a lot of the YouTube videos are different things. Sometimes it's, understanding how to play whatever video game he's playing, mm-hmm. or he likes anime, so he watches, how to draw and things like that. So all summer he was pretty much into the gaming. And then band happened, which takes up a lot of time here in Texas because Texas is the only thing probably quite as big in high school as football is Texas bands, if not bigger.
Everything's bigger in Texas.
Yeah, and so now
I gained 20 pounds when I went there.
Yeah, but it's kind of funny because the whole band thing has turned him off of video games, and now he's pretty much just like he likes animals, so he watches all the fun dog videos, with the dogs and different kinds of dogs, things like that. So
that's terrific.
That's what I'm shut up. So that's what I'm kind of saying, it's
I don't know what you want me to say to this.
Yeah, but he
I'm
doesn't
excited
watch.
Your kid likes dog videos.
But he doesn't watch TV.
Oh, there we are. Okay.
He'll watch dinner. We'll eat dinner and we'll watch a TV show together. And it's usually an 80s or 90s show because those were when the best TV shows are made.
Obviously.
And then, like, after dinner, he'll do his homework and then he goes up and does YouTube.
See, that's your problem, Dan. When you were in Texas, you should have just been watching your dinner.
Yeah, that is the problem.
Should have been watching my weight. All right, so there we go. We have, like I say, that was 5 things. Let's just do a quick recap. Make training, upgrade skills. Sure, apply design thinking to training. Create on-demand learning content. So with that on-demand thing, we didn't really go into the idea of the actual on-demand. Like so many, this is, it's when do I have the problem and how much friction is there between me and the answer? That is such a big issue. And I think we're starting to see LMS vendors. When I was, this is again another great opportunity for me to bring up the fact that me and Adam hosted a session at the ATD ICE conference last May.
Oh God, here it goes.
ATD, check your bingo card.
Yeah.
Although I am impressed you haven't been bragging about yourself these last 2 podcasts.
Well, it's because, there's stuff to talk about here. But but there were some LMS vendors that seemed to be getting away from the rather structured log in, click this to find your catalog, search for, like they're trying to make it more accessible click this to find your catalog, search for, like they're trying to make it more accessible and in your face, almost like a YouTube sort of interface. So and if I've got somebody that's in the field, let's say, for them to access learning content, how they need to do it, the competition is YouTube and it's Google. So if there is a company specific way that they need to have that answer, provided or answered, that question answered, then they've got to make that a very, very seamless sort of thing to have that content on demand. I mean, that's I think that is the next frontier for L&D to reduce that friction. I don't think it's VR or AR. I think it's to get answers to people with either a swipe or a click, and that's it.
What Adam call on time or just in time? Is that what
just
it was?
Just in time? Yeah. Sure. Just in time.
That type of stuff is big.
Just in time? Yeah. Sure. Just in time.
That type of stuff is big. I can't tell you how many times I've got something going on with my TV, and I just I want that. Why isn't this working? And then you try and figure it out. But depends on the source of the problem. Is it a just in time issue where I need it to get resolved that way? Then that's the perfect medium for it, right? But if I need to take on something that's much larger, a fuller course. I don't need a snack. I need a whole meal. Get bigger. But sometimes you need the full meal, and you need everything and all the things that complements it too, and not just the one, the nano answer.
That's right. But I mean, the context matters because you wouldn't be looking for the nano answer if you were ready to sit down and do the 3
intended. And a lot of people are looking at it like it's the only tool. It's a hammer, and everything you see is if all you see is if all you have is a hammer, then everything you see is a nail, right? So, along those lines.
No, I hear you. All right, let's move on to the second of two articles, folks, and then just a couple other things to bring you after that. And this is called 8 Things You Need to Know, or I'm sorry, 8 Things You Need to Sacrifice If You Want to Achieve Success in 2020. So that's what we've got in front of us right now. And here we are. I've written it down.
Somebody messed it up.
Oh, what happened?
Our working notes were. It got hidden from me.
Ruh-roh. Sounds like a browser issue.
Got it. We're good.
Excellent.
We're good.
Okay, so there's eight things that you need to sacrifice, and this is you mentioned. I think we were just chatting before the podcast we started recording. You mentioned Gary Vee. He talks a lot about sacrifice, and I felt bad because we didn't talk about him in the last episode. And we try to bring him up on a regular basis.
It's okay. He won't be missed.
But
he'll be missed. You mean he won't miss it?
But the idea is, hang on. So Gibbs, you brought us this article, or at least you were the one that suggested we talk about it. Do you want to kind of start walking us through this, or what?
And the reason I brought it up was because when you and I were talking last week, we were thinking of topics, and I wanted to talk about. What and it could be personal or business, but what are your, how do you set goals for the next year? And I'm not talking New Year's resolutions, but how do you set goals, and what do you do to make sure rather than business goals or career goals that I set every year, and how I set them up, etc. But then one of my colleagues saw this article. And she tends to be like, I saw this meme that I don't know if I sent it to you, Dan, but the meme says, "I'm not bossy, I'm aggressively helpful." And that's her to a T. That's her to a T. So she decided. She saw this article and she printed it for everyone and put it on their desks before we got here this morning. Again, not bossy, but aggressively helpful.
Sounds both aggressive and helpful.
And so when I read it, I was like, oh, this could actually be part of our conversation today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it could. And I think that there is, this is it. I mean, you were talking, Eli, last week you made a comment about all of us having 24 hours in a day. And it's true. And it's what you do with those 24 hours that makes the difference. You see these ultimate performers, these people that are just the pinnacle of success. And it doesn't come, unless you're Kardashian, it actually takes some work to do, you know? I mean, or you can just leak a sex tape and then boom, you're successful. But
please don't.
No, well, that's not my plan. Your results may vary.
After some of the show topics these past few weeks,
I'm just saying.
And along those lines, this list, I couldn't agree with these items more. I see some of them a little bit differently. But I think all these things on this. Okay, I'll get to the one in just a second.
Okay.
The list itself, if you want to be happy, this is a great list. It doesn't matter. Like the list itself, if you want to be happy, this is a great list. It doesn't matter like about your job, whether or outside your job, your life, wherever. This is a great thing to do. Stop complaining. Don't compare yourself to others. Set specific goals. Don't burn any bridges. Don't underestimate your education or what you know. Wasting your breaks. Like wasting your breaks in this context is talking about your breaks at work. Like your breaks, like I've got a 15-minute downtime or whatever. I also see that as wasting the breaks you get in life, right? And thinking that another one's going to come right around.
Yep.
So that's kind of like when I first saw this, I saw that list. I'm like, wasting your breaks. I'm like, I get it. Like you get a job interview or you get an opportunity that you don't know when those are coming again, so don't waste them.
Yeah. Don't ever come back saying, what if?
Exactly. So, but in this regard, it's talking about be productive on your breaks, which I agree with too. And then overeating after work. That's been a theme so far today, what we've been talking about, getting bigger. But
that was such a weird one. Like, what in the hell is that?
Because
overeating after work?
Well,
because it puts you in a bad spot the next day, or it puts you in a...
Well, and here's the thing. I'm going to be bad and talk about Adam. Adam doesn't bring lunch.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He doesn't bring lunch, so, and I don't know what he eats for breakfast, but he brings this little, food bar that he eats, and maybe an apple. And so I tend to have, snacks and stuff at my desk. So he, takes all the icebreakers and the pistachios and the Chex Mix and the goldfish, and that's what he takes it from my desk, and that's his lunch.
You should start packing celery sticks and
so I just gave away what Christmas gift I gave him. So I actually for Christmas I got him, I put in a gift bag all of those things. But you know what, that's not healthy for you, because then you go home and you eat too much for dinner.
All right, Adam, so as you're listening back to this, we chose to keep this in the podcast so that you can eat a healthier lunch. Complaining about your job, that's obviously useless, and we're all very good at it. That's one of those things that we all practice on a regular basis.
It's easy.
And really, where does it get you? It gets you nowhere, just more pissed off, No damn good. Comparing yourself to others, there's a guy I've paid a bit of attention to, Jordan Peterson, and he has consistently said, don't compare yourself to somebody else today. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday. Because that's really the only actual comparison that you can reasonably make.
Your only competition is yourself.
Yeah, that's it. So it's just, how'd you do yesterday? Can you do better than that?
So how does it work when you...
Can you do better than that?
So how does it work when you don't like yourself?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm sorry, Gibbs, what'd you say?
So how do you do that if you don't like yourself?
Well, what a terrific comparison to make. I don't know. If you were a shitty person yesterday, just try to be less of a shitty person today.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. No, and it can be simple stuff. I mean, if you're athletic, it's like, well, what did you run the 40 in, or how much weight did you lift, or
and I get that, but when you have low self-esteem and self-confidence, that's hard.
Yeah, but comparing yourself against an Instagram model's not going to help.
I know.
All you can do is say, what can I do better from yesterday? What small incremental thing can I do? Can I that I can try to be better at today? One of the things I'm still reading. I know we were talking about it hot and heavy a little bit earlier. The book Creating Mindful Leaders.
Yes.
And I'm towards the tail end of it.
Oh,
I don't know
you?
where you.
I'm still on the forward.
You're still reading the dust cover. That's great.
Hey, at least I read it.
But I'm just about through it, and it's a lot about kind of not even meditation in a cross-legged sitting on the floor sort of way, but just a way to practice not being distracted, and that I still suck at it. But every day I try to suck a little less at it. So it's one of those things that it's a skill that has to be practiced to get better. So if you got something you're shitty at, you just pick a little piece of it that you can try to accomplish and just do it. And then the next day you do it, maybe you do it a little bit more, you do it 2 times or whatever. But that one I think is terrific, and it's the incremental changes that really in the long run over the course of a year, or maybe even is terrific, and it's the incremental changes that really in the long run over the course of a year, or maybe even multiple years. Like, where am I going to be 5 years from now? That's a question that I don't think enough people ask.
Yep.
They just try to make it to dinner when they're trying to take Chex Mix off your desk.
So let me ask you all a question. So Eli, out of all of these 8 things, what is your hardest one to overcome?
My hardest one?
Yeah.
Let's go back to see this list.
Oh, he already moved on.
No, I was sitting there at the bottom of the list.
He's watching YouTube, man. He's learning how to tie flies on YouTube.
I think not setting specific enough goals. And what's interesting about this one is you have, in a past pod that you guys did, you talked about performance reviews, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the goals that we're talking about here need to be off that performance review chart. It can't be that. It's got to be, your personal goal that's off that list, right? What do you want to accomplish? And it could be things that are on, that it could be loosely tied to what you would put on your performance review goals or goals for the year or whatever it may be. But that's got to be something that's more personal to you than it is professional to you, because that's going to drive you. So I think I don't look that far out, I guess. I look down more than I look out when it's coming to, like Dan said, trying to make it to dinner, right? Like, there are days where I'm just, I leave the office and I'm just trying to get home to dinner, right? Like, anything that happens after that is bonus. So I guess I don't look forward enough career-wise and job-wise of what I want to do. Another reason why is because I'm happy, right?
Yeah.
I'm not miserable. Like kind of Dan said earlier about, or you mentioned, like, what if you don't have any self-esteem and don't hate yourself? I'm happy. I like what I do. I like, I'm not.
So your
danger
is.
I'm not leaving something I hate.
Yeah.
I'm not going to either way, right? I'm not leaving something I hate when I leave home in the morning, and I'm not leaving something I hate when I come home in the evening. So,
which not many people can say.
I am blown away regularly at how fortunate I am, and the three of us. Here we are, the three of us. It just so happens that there too. Actually, when I was managing retail, I didn't care for that job at all, but. I learned a lot from it, but goddamn, I didn't like it. That's for sure. So I'm very, very fortunate to do something that I am as excited about this. That I want to do this on a regular. I want to meet on a weekly basis and talk about this shit because I just love it that much. I don't know what my problem would be.
Because you're so great.
Well, obviously, yeah. The problem is I don't have enough problems. No, like there's a lot of things in here comparing yourself to
Eli
others.
and I named some for you.
I don't know if that's necessary. No, I think comparing yourself to others. So I do kind of have a bit of a jealous streak running through me. I don't know if it's jealousy or envy. I don't know which one's more
or
appropriate.
competitiveness.
And those first two on that list too, kind of they're intertwined a little bit. Complaining about your job and comparing yourself to others. They're intertwined a little bit. Complaining about your job and comparing yourself to others.
You think so?
Yeah, because if you think you're doing a job better than somebody else, right? You're complaining about it, and you're talking to somebody about it. You're complaining, right?
You're doing both.
And
True
the same
enough,
thing,
yeah.
like someone's not pulling enough weight, or whatever it may be. Comparing yourself to, well, I did this and they did that. Those two things, they're like the red and white stripes on a candy cane.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so this comparing yourself to others things, and I have to remind myself on a regular basis when I see somebody that has just ridiculous success, I'm like, oh God, I wish, like that's exactly what I want. Like I want to have that sort of thing. I want this podcast to be successful, and I want people to enjoy it. At least that should be kind of a precursor to its success. But I see somebody that's got tens of thousands of downloads, and I'm like, oh, damn it. Why can't I have those?
I've changed my mindset when it comes to that, and I see that as like my mindset when it comes to that, and I see that as like, yes, they made it.
Yeah,
right?
No, you're right. You're right.
I've completely flipped the script because I used to be the same way, especially with like the fly tying thing.
Yeah,
and I see it as like, yes, they made it. Like that's awesome that opportunity is out there, and maybe I can do that too.
Yeah.
But that took a lot of mental, putting the training wheels
changing
on.
The paradigm. Yeah.
Changing the paradigm, mentally, fixing that muscle to think, I'm not jealous. I'm excited because that is achievable, right? Like you see somebody who takes something they love to do, and all of a sudden that's what they're doing because it's not jealousy. Like, man, I wish that was me. Yeah, I do wish that was me, but you know what? It's cool is that opportunity's out there, and it's achievable. It's not. And it's not.
The thing is, I don't want to confuse it with. Although sometimes I'm rather bitchy about it. I don't want to confuse it with where they are because just knowing what it takes to put this together, to have a proper, a properly run, functioning, popular podcast, there's a lot of stars that have to align for that. And they only align after a ton of frickin' work's gone into it, like years worth of work, There's always some sort of anecdote around an overnight success 10 years in the making, or even longer. So I know it's just a grind, but I guess that's it for me. All right, I don't know if there's anything else in here that really speaks to me, although binge watching TV, and again, this is a list of things that you have to sacrifice according to the powers that be, which are Sean Finder, And we'll have the notes for this, so this will be in the show notes at mosby.ca/016. 8 things you need to sacrifice if you want to achieve success in 2020.
That last one is definitely, isn't even on my radar. I actually just started watching a TV show for the first time in about 5 or 6 years.
Well, it's because you're just playing video games, right?
Yeah.
What TV show?
The Mandalorian. It's amazing.
Oh.
I've heard a lot of good stuff about that.
I got up yesterday, so the episode, the most recent chapter 7 dropped.
Spoiler alert.
No, I'm just saying when it dropped. It dropped.
Oh.
It dropped at 3:00 in the morning.
Oof.
Because it drops at midnight Pacific time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So last 2 episodes I've gotten up early to watch it before my kids get up.
Now, again, speaking of paradigm shifts, this is another thing back to appointment viewing. Because
that's done.
Netflix got everybody used to the idea of, well, okay, the new season's out. Let's sit for the next 2 days and finish all of this season.
And then wrestling that away again.
It's going back the other way. The pendulum's swinging, man, and that's a good thing, I think.
Watch out, bell bottoms are coming back.
You know what?
You've seen that come back, 3-4 times now, Gibbs?
Yeah, it's on a 30-year cycle.
I still have my pants from 70s.
Yeah, you were shorter back then, though.
I knew they were coming back.
All right. Is there anything else, Gibbs? I'll give you the last word on that article as you brought it to us.
I think for me, it's a lot of them. But, I set a lot of personal goals. So I think the first 2 for me, it's just breaking that habit. Just really breaking that habit.
Complaining about your job?
Yeah, and I love my job, but, there's always things. And I don't know if I compare, I'm not as good as Eli, because I don't know if I'm jealous or envious, but, I just have very high standards for myself, and so, and unfortunately I put those high standards on others. And we're different people. And
that's why I left that company.
Yeah, and that's where I struggle. But for me, it's the binge watching. I was even thinking this coming year, because I get stuck on shows, bad. And so, I was telling... Bad? No, I haven't even watched that. My husband has. But because I get stuck on shows, bad. And so, I was telling... Bad? No, I haven't even watched that. My husband has. But so I was telling myself,
Breaking Bad, I just finished that.
This coming year, if I binge watch anything, I probably need to be watching documentaries or something educational other than, crap. So.
Yeah, TV, fortunate enough that's not a huge problem for me because I'm.
Yeah.
Well, I'm perfect. So let's move on to...
But there's so many other things I can be doing. Yeah. And so...
That's the hard part.
Smug.
Yeah. So I'm just I got to get away from that because it's addicting. It's bad.
Oh, you know what I wanted to say about the complaining about your job thing? You said... I think one of us made a joke about being good at it or something like that. So that book, Creating Mindful Leaders Again, and it's Joe, that book, Creating Mindful Leaders Again, and it's Joe Burton, I think is his name. I hope I got that
Gus
right.
Gus.
No.
Burton Guster?
Burton Guster.
No. So, but what he one of the big points that's in that book is... He says, we get good at the things that we practice or that we do regularly. So if we regularly check our phone and regularly are distracted, then that's the thing that we're going to reinforce and just do more and more and not get better at it in the sense that we're getting more efficient at it. We just do more of that thing. And it's really hard. And this is where the whole, just daily few minutes of, and again, I don't know if I want to say meditation, but the act of trying to not be distracted and to think of a single thing or to think of nothing, just to have a clear mind, that's really freaking hard to do. I still can't do it. I can't sit for a minute and think of nothing. I cannot do it. I can't sit for a minute and think of nothing. I cannot do it. But I need to practice to try to do it.
Because it's important.
Get to the point. Well, that's right. To get to the point where I can not be distracted, I need to just try.
Well, and that's how Gary Vee was saying today about how everyone needs at least a minimum of 7 hours sleep. And we are...
Oh, sleep's important.
And not, and most people aren't doing that. But, but we need that to sharpen our saw. And it's the same thing with that 5 minutes of just clearing your mind and meditating.
No, it's true. It's true. All right, let's move on, guys. Only a couple more things to do, and one of them is...
Yeah, because I need to get my 7 hours of sleep.
That's right. You got to get your full 7 in there, man. And it is getting late here on the East Coast here in Ontario. But all right. So the next thing, ladies and gentlemen, for you, I have prepared another poem. So here we are. That was on that show. Is that show still on?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oof. Who hosts it?
Barbara Walters.
No, she doesn't.
No way.
Stop it.
John Stossel was awesome on that show.
John Stossel. See the guy that was always trying to catch predators?
No, that's Chris Hansen.
No.
That's Arnold
That's
Schwarzenegger.
NBC. That's NBC.
That's Arnold
Okay.
Schwarzenegger.
There you go. Nicely done. All
He'll
right.
be back.
Ladies and gentlemen, dial in your sights. As 2019 comes to a close and we sit here and chat as L&D pros, solemn reflection on what we got done, we finish this leg of the bigger long run. PowerPoint decks with boughs of holly, the things that we do to make training jolly. We could have done more in 2019, shed some more light on job aids unseen. If you had to compare, what would you change? Well, we can start over by looking downrange. Audio that doesn't sound so stiff. E-learning that shows a bit of midriff. What an honor it is with this clean slate, trying again to make training first rate.
That was
For
kind of
the year-
depressing.
I'm not fucking done. Shut up. For the year 2020, dial in your sights and assemble a couple career highlights. So the idea is, I was going to end it in an even worse note, but then I was like, hey, try harder,
Yeah,
That's all I'm saying.
and you always
A couple career highlights. So the idea is, I was going to end it in an even worse note, but then I was like, hey, try harder, That's all I'm saying.
and you only said a couple highlights.
Well, I'm not asking for too much. It's incremental change. You know what I mean?
We only had a couple highlights in 2019.
So there's a couple of fellows that I've come to know from the Joe Rogan podcast, and Jocko, who you've brought up before, Dan.
Yes.
And who's an amazing dude.
He
And
really
then
is.
Cameron Haynes is another one, and I don't know which one of them brought it up, but it's nobody cares, work harder.
It's true.
I've seen
it's
that.
so true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love
It's
it.
so true.
Speaking of frickin' downers, I just actually started listening to my first Jocko.
Did Al Pacino die? He was another guy who did a 2000s football movie.
It could be
Were you
close.
talking about radio again?
Yes.
Jamie Kennedy?
Radio.
Is that the guy from the Jamie Kennedy experiment?
No.
Experiment? Is that?
But Ed Harris, who was the coach in radio, has been in a coach in other shows too.
He's just got that look to him, does he?
Yeah, I like him. He was like in what the heck's that show? Abyss.
What? Abyss?
The Abyss.
Well, that was a movie. That wasn't a show.
Movie, show, all the same.
Yeah. Well, this is a podcast.
Like, I'm going to the show. I'm going to a movie show.
Nobody says that.
See?
Nobody under the age of 55 says that. So the last thing we're going to end on.
Yeah, but I
the
still
final
look
note.
younger than you, so there.
I'll take it.
Well, he also
Hey, man.
has a facial hairstyle from 1824.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He look-
I'll take it.
Well, he also
Hey, man.
has a facial hairstyle from 1824.
I don't know what you're talking about.
He looks like a Civil War general.
Yes, I know.
Or Shel Silverstein.
Wait a sec. The North or the South? I think this is important for the sake of the podcast.
That was a great mini-series, by the way.
I'm going to start calling you Maz.
I have no
let's
idea
move
what
on
that
if we
means,
could.
but okay.
Okay, the last thing that we're going to talk about before we totally turn the lights off here in 2019 is, so what goals do you guys have for 2020? I mean, okay, maybe the poem was a bit of a downer, but I feel like that's part of this time of year, though, isn't it? Like, that is part of the year to look back and be like,
I didn't do shit.
Either WoW was great, it really wasted some opportunities, and there was some real low-hanging fruit that got missed. So what are the things as we look forward that we can try to do? We compared to ourselves yesterday. What are the things that look forward we can try to do to try to make 2020 a better year than 2019? And as this was your suggested topic, and a reasonable one at that, Cynthia Gibbs, what's on your list of 2020 goals?
So for me, it's more personal. There's always been specific goals career-wise that I've always been, but, now that I'm old, it's not always necessarily about career, and I focus a lot more on personal goals. And so I don't know if you have on the bingo card, Eli, but Franklin Covey is like something I'm
like
huge
field
on.
notes, not Franklin Covey.
And so when I used to train Franklin Covey classes and their time management class with the transparency sheets, they usually talked about when it comes to taking care of yourself personally, you got to think of physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual things that you need to do to always sharpen your saw. Yeah. So excuse me, for years, that's what I've done is I've set goals for myself in those 4 areas, and then using the business model of
which 4 areas?
Physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Did you read the show notes?
Over there.
And then,
I'm blown away. In fact, I copied and pasted that line twice.
And then I go from a business sense, I make the goals SMART. So when I set my goals, they're very specific, they're measurable, they're very attainable. I make sure they're realistic.
Relatable?
No, realistic, honestly. And then I make sure they're realistic.
Relatable?
No, realistic, honestly. And then I make sure they're time set, which is always a year for most of the things, or they're trackable. So
okay.
And so I find when I do that, it's so much easier for me to reach them.
I like the idea of. I always thought of T in the SMART acronym as timely or time sensitive or time set or something like that. I like trackable better though. I like that. Mm-hmm.
Well, and measurable too can be it, but and so I tend to be, and it could be whatever you want. I mean, it's that's what I love about the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It's whatever spiritual is to you, whatever emotional is to you, mental, physical. I tend to have more physical goals than anything else, but when it comes to dances, meditating, well, for me, it's me reading books because I love to read and reading a certain number of certain genres a year. Emotional is more of things I want to do with my family, or playing my piano more a certain number of hours. But the physical is also there, and so like for the last 3 years, my goal is to participate in 12 5Ks. Last year this year I did a sprint try. And so this coming year, I've set goals from that too, certain dates, etc. And the other one, for me, physical, and this is crazy, and people laugh at me on Facebook because I say my dog wrote the goal. My dog has a goal, but she has a goal of the 300-mile challenge. So her goal for 2019 is to walk 300 miles with her person.
Did she hit her goal?
We're 14.
Yeah, you're close to that finish line.
And so what we've done, so what I figured out was 300 miles is 25 miles per month. And so that's how I track it, and that's how I measure it. It's that whole adage of how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. So I didn't focus on the 300. I focused on 25 miles a month. 25 miles a month. And if I didn't hit those 25 miles a month, how did I spread it out? So I'd be like 30 miles this month to make up, kind of thing. And now we were behind. I'll be honest with you. We were behind in August. we were behind by like 25 miles because it gets so dang hot here.
Oh, it's gross, yeah.
Yeah, and so we've been doing doubles, but it's so fun because
doing 2-a-days.
Yeah, we've been doing 4 miles a day. Yeah, and so the cool thing is I kind of made it this stupid thing on Facebook, and like I get more likes about where you guys at with your 300-mile challenge, and the fact that my dog set the goal than anything else, even more than big
Gibbs. But you wrote this note that said personal L&D goal.
Well, because I was trying to make it L&D because you would have yelled at me.
Well, no, I appreciate you trying in the show notes. How about you try now? What is something in your L&D world that you'd like to try for next year?
Just like the last episode, what is my wish list is for these 2 projects to be awesome.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound a goal that's attainable.
That's my goal.
Measurable.
That's my goal, is just getting those 2 projects done. I mean, and, not that I know, I'm just in a different place in life, where I don't have like back in, when I was your age, Dan, I had that goal of I want to move up into this position, or I want to move into that area kind of thing. And
they don't have to be that.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be to learn PowerPoint better. It could be to learn
that area kind of thing. And
they don't have to be that.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be to learn PowerPoint better. It could be to learn
and honestly, I'm just like, I'm kind of like Eli. I love my job. I'm learning things that I haven't learned before. But I don't really have like a hard driven goal of those kinds of things.
Okay.
And part of it's we move so fast.
All right. We'll have to talk about this off air. Mr. Berant, do you have any thoughts there, things that you want to do L&D wise? Or, I mean, if you want to walk your dog too, that's cool.
L&D wise, it's all about learning the program, Articulate programs, and what it can do, and that's gonna spark the creativity because we can do so many more things than the platform Captivate, being just pigeon. But that's my number one goal, is to learn the tools that I have to make better products.
Have you heard of, and that's a sensible goal, have you heard of the e-learning hero challenges, the weekly challenges?
Yeah, there's some cool stuff. I get the emails on that, and I've been following that along. It's a pretty good way to do it. And that's kind of how I started the first project I used was I just said, you know what? I'm not going to look at I'm just going to jump and build my wings on the way down and try to figure it out. Because until you take that first step, until you do those first things, you're going to hem and haw and say, well, I'm not ready yet. And you know what? Just do it.
You almost need to have like a practice project, but or at least, you know what? No matter what, you always have that first project. And that's just it. Like, even if I try something for the first time, it's probably not going to be great, but you got to get that first one out of the way no matter what. And you just kind of keep making them better after that. But I've been, although I don't use Articulate, we have a developer and she uses it on the regular. But she's implemented a lot of stuff that I've designed. I have taken design ideas from the e-learning challenge submissions, and I've implemented those, just the concepts, to great success in other things that I've done. So you get a lot of great ideas through that too.
Another thing too, like, and then the physical thing, I've got to get myself in better shape. I've got 3 little boys, and I got to keep up. Mm-hmm. And
That's
then
it,
and the other thing is, even with that, talked about the taking that first step, you got to be brave enough to suck at something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's true.
Well, and one of my goals, and it has been for like 5 years, is to be able to do a pull-up.
Have you hit that goal?
No, and so I am determined.
You haven't sketched it out smartly.
Yeah,
that's
I am determined to make that happen in 2020. I just want
you haven't sketched it out smartly.
Yeah,
that's
I am determined to make that happen in 2020. I just want to do one, just one.
I wish you the best.
And
Speaking of being brave enough to suck at something, I think I'd actually like to try an open mic night to have
Poetry?
like a 5-minute No, because I already suck at that.
You're a beatnik?
No, like an open mic comedy thing. I'd like to try to, because I can craft a couple things. Like, this is all stuff on the fly, so it's not meant to be funny. If you've laughed, it was unintended. But
that's not true.
No, but I think I would like to try that, just as far as moving my storytelling ability forward, moving my public speaking forward. And it's funny, I have opportunities all the time to do public speaking, but there's still things that I feel lazy at, where it's just like, I know I suck at that particular thing and I don't care, but I'd like to get better at those too. So that's going to be a big one for me if I go down that route. And I think I really would like to. And a couple other things, I'd like to get a little bit more involved in conferences locally here. What I've learned since coming from the States. Well,
you gotta come up with a sweet name like Swizzle for something locally.
Swizzle.
Yeah.
That's it, man. Just start a conference. Swizzle Conference 2020. But I would like to try to find my way into a couple more conferences as well. As far as skill sets to develop, I think my design stuff, I'd like to. No, my design stuff's not the issue. Although it's not great, it's good enough.
No,
just hear me out.
Don't hurt yourself. Pat yourself on the back.
Well, it's not something that needs immediate attention. I think my project management does, though. So that's one of those things.
I agree.
Thank you for that support. Oh, absolutely, yeah. No, it's true. So I got to map stuff out and chunk it out and that sort of stuff. But I need to get better at it, because it's not something that I've got formal training in or experience in. So I'm kind of stumbling along as it is. But I gotta find that formality to give myself a framework to suck better within, and then try to level up from there. But that's it for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope whatever you have in front of you for 2020 is achievable and measurable and all those things. And we're going to be here to walk through it over the next 52 weeks, I hope. And if you want to use this as a kind of a foundation, you can find these notes at mosby.ca/016. You can always email us at mosbylearning@gmail.com, and Adam checks that at his leisure. So please, no emergency emails there. Although there's never supposed to be a training emergency, is there? All right, social media, ladies and gentlemen, where will we find each other on the interwebs? Gibbs, where can people reach you?
LinkedIn.
This is always the most brief of updates from you. Yeah, Cynthia Gibbs, you can find her there. Eli, where do you want people to find you?
Great Lakes Fly on Instagram for that medium, and then LinkedIn.
And LinkedIn also. Very good. And that's spelled Gibbs. All right. You can find...
Wait. No, I'm not Gibbs.
See, I am good at jokes. All right. Music...
It's nice to know I'm on your mind. No.
Music from this, Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. He always does good music. Right now you're listening to The Show Must Be Go, but you've heard Retro Future Dirty, you've heard Winner, you've heard Spyglass, you've heard all sorts of stuff. So he's got a lot of good songs. Me and other Mosby things, at Twitter, at Mosby Learning. There you go. And then if you want me on Twitter, that's Dan Talks, LN. D, and the N is like Nancy. You're also going to find me on LinkedIn, and I probably share more stuff on LinkedIn. Man, I'll tell you what. I mean, I was all gung-ho. I'm like, I'm going to get on the social medias. And I'm not saying I regret it, but maybe that should be on my goals for 2020 to try to get better at that. So anyways, Instagram, Dan Talks Training, and on LinkedIn, it's just Dan Hirt, Hirt. You can find me there. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to find you next year. Have a good rest of your 2020, and then 2021 after that. I don't know what, but enjoy everything that's in front of you, every minute of it. We'll talk to you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Out.
See, now you're just doing to make fun of me, I think.
Mosby, out. But,
I love it.
Thanks.